In the program Current Affairs, now we bring you a discussion on Supreme Court's direction on civil service reforms. The participants are Ved Marwa, former Delhi Police Commissioner, Dr. Surat Singh, Advocate, Supreme Court, and Sandeep Joshi, the Hindu who initiates and moderates the discussion.
Yesterday, Supreme Court gave a major judgment while disposing a PIL filed by 77 former bureaucrats and police officials. The major crux of the judgment is ordered for a major civil services reforms. The major problem with today's bureaucracy is the Supreme Court felt that it has not been insulated from the political class, and frequent transfers of civil servants is affecting the governance in the country. So, Mr. Marwa, you are one of the petitioners in this case. I would like to ask you, how do you see this judgment from the Supreme Court?
Well, it's a very important judgment. It has touched the most important issue, that is a matter of the way it's functioning is a matter of great concern, because in a diverse country like ours, it is important that we have a neutral and professional bureaucracy, because they are the ones who ultimately implement policies and deliver services and essential commodities to the people. And when bureaucracy is politicized, and politicized so badly, that today this concept of loyalty to the party has become so strong that when a government changes, all the top posts change with it. It's unthinkable. I joined the service few years after independence, and the first 15 years there was no interference. All that has changed. Today an honest servant finds it difficult to even survive. So in that context, the Supreme Court judgment takes a lot of importance. The nexus between bureaucrat, politician, crony, corporate houses has become, to break this nexus, it is important that this power of posting and transfers is given to a professional board. And that is one of the directions of the Supreme Court. The second, when illegal orders are given, obviously they are not going to be given in writing, they are given verbally. And here again, the Supreme Court has given a directive. But the problem is that unless the government implements these directives properly, and nothing will happen, because Supreme Court directives in 2006 about police reforms, again their directives were very important, but nothing much has happened.
So you have been head of Delhi Police, and you must be having very good friends who must have led the government departments now. So the major point in the judgment was talked about the transfer issue. The order says that at present the civil servants are not having any stability of tenure, particularly in state governments, where transfers and postings are made frequently at whims and fancies of the executive head of political and other considerations, and not in public interest. We see that whenever government comes in a state, we see that the chief secretaries and the police chiefs are seen as political appointees.
Up to a level of the sub-inspector, everybody.
Yeah. So, what should the government doing in this while addressing the transfer issue?
Well, the one is that this arbitrary postings and transfers must stop. Technically, transfer is not a punishment, but in fact, it's a great punishment, because in today's world, a transfer means uprooting your entire establishment. It's difficult to get admission for the children. Where do the children live? And if you have aged parents, again, there are a series of problems. And it's a great economic loss. But the main thing is that in sensitive posts, politicians want people of their choice. And they want people who can pursue their agenda, their personal agenda, their party agenda. The bureaucracy should really, its main job should be enforcing the rule of law. They are accountable primarily to the rule of law. And then it becomes professionalism. So posting should be done on the basis of experience, on the basis of merit, on the basis of seniority, and on the basis of suitability. But when postings are done on reasons other than these, then all the problems start. Therefore, the Supreme Court order, if it is directive, if it is enforced in the right manner, then it will lead to a huge improvement in the administrative system.
In recent years, we have seen people filing PILs, moving High Court, Supreme Court, when it comes to matters of public interest, be it the reforms in election commission in the political class. We see Supreme Court delivering landmark judgment in the police reforms case also, and now in the case of civil services reform. So Dr. Singh, how do you see this judgment?
Well, first of all, it's a remarkable landmark judgment because the basic role of the Supreme Court is to enforce the fundamental values of the society. See, a politician is much more worried about next election. Supreme Court, because it has to implement the Constitution, is much more and should be much more worried about the next generation. That is the difference. So to protect the integrity of the entire system, Supreme Court has been very laudably giving various directions, including media trial. So in this case, the remarkable feature, as Marwa Sahab has very rightly pointed out, are three. One is that transparency. Transparency, accountability and stability. These are the three features of this judgment. How transparency? That if oral instruction is given, that can be obeyed, but then there should be confirmation, even post facto, in writing. So that will keep the record. Then accountability, so that we know who has made the decision. Honorable Supreme Court has said if it is not in writing, we don't know where to attach the accountability. So writing will help in that. So that is second part. Third part is fixed tenure. Because this Damocles sword is hanging over your head all the time. You can't concentrate on business. Contrast this by, let's say, in judicial reform itself. Before, appointment were made by political executive, law ministers and all that. Now from 1996 onwards, Supreme Court came out with the Supreme Court Advocate Bar Association, where the collegium of the Supreme Court will decide the transfer of judges and appointment of judges. So the independence of judiciary has become a very significant factor. Now, say for example CBI. On the one hand, there are so many politicians which are involved, and on the other hand, CBI is controlled by Home Ministry. So how do you expect a person to be going against their bosses? So it is very important that an independent tribunal like the Central Board should decide about the transfer, should decide about who should be posted to which post. So all these are absolutely overdue reform, which Supreme Court has only put its stamp on that, which was already overdue, which has been said by Santhanam Committee, which has been said by Hota Committee. So it is not that Supreme Court is saying something new. Supreme Court is putting its seal of approval by saying that these things need to be done. And then, as Marwa Sahab has rightly pointed out, that these are to be implemented. For that purpose, Supreme Court has given 3 months to all the state governments and central government to comply with this. And not only that, one thing more has been said in the judgment, and that is that till the Parliament chooses to make the law, this will govern. And so many times our Parliament, with great respect, does not act. So it means law has been laid down. So it is to be implemented. And I will only expect that the Supreme Court will ask for a compliance report. Because what happens, that orders you passed, but if there are no compliance report timely, then it is not implemented. But if the fear of compliance is there, that if you don't comply, it will be a contempt of court, then it will be implemented. So the next step for the Supreme Court would be, they should ask a periodic compliance report so that all the directions of the Supreme Court, which has been really passed in a public interest petition filed by public spirited person and distinguished civil servant like Mr. Marwa, so that they can be implemented both in letter and spirit.
You talked about the review of the Supreme Court monitoring its implementation, but the irony is that the Supreme Court directives on police reforms came way back in 2006. And till today we see those police officers and those bureaucrats who filed this PIL on police reforms are still fighting today because they say that most of the states have not even implemented half of the recommendations, and those who have implemented these recommendations are against the very spirit of the Supreme Court directives. So, Mr. Marwa, what do you have to say about it?
Not because of our past experience, you are right, and Supreme Court judgment about police reforms, the directive was given about 7 years ago. But today, situation is very different. Apart from Supreme Court, you have pressure of public opinion. And politician reacts more than to anything else. As Dr. Suraj Singh has very rightly said, that his first priority is coming back to power, winning election. And those elections today are a question mark, because people are demanding good governance. People are demanding social and economic justice. People are demanding delivery of essential services and commodities. And all that can't be done if you don't have a professional bureaucracy to deliver it. And that is where I am optimistic that irrespective of what the political establishment may want to do, they will be forced by public opinion and Supreme Court's directive to go in the right direction.
I totally agree with Marwa Saab. See the other cases also. For example, conviction rate in India was very low. But in this, just to take one recent example of Vasant Vihar gang rape, for the first time, within such a short period, entire investigation was completed, even case was finalized. Of course, they have right to appeal and all that, but at least the trial court has done an excellent job. And there the investigation team for the first time, consisting of an additional DCP, 3 ACPs and 9 inspectors. Usually in these kind of cases, only an inspector is assigned to a murder case. So, things are changing, and then the kind of agitation you have seen in the country, in India Gate and all that, shows that this new India wants a different kind of orientation altogether.
In the police reforms, one of the major directives was to constitute a state security commission to ensure that there should be an impartial committee formed for this, to look into matters related to transfers or to their complaints against officers and all. And in the civil reforms, the yesterday's judgment, it says that there should be a civil services board that can guide and advise political executive on transfers, postings and other disciplinary action. And it has asked to form a committee. We have seen in case of police reforms, we have seen in states the political parties putting their so-called officers or their well-wishers, we can say, in these committees. What do you see, Mr. Marwa? What are the chances like these political leaders or top bureaucrats putting their own people inside this, the board which you are talking about?
You know, if the past experience is any guide, then I am afraid one can't be very optimistic. But here again, as I said, State Security Commission was originally the recommendation of the National Police Commission. And as we know, the government was very unhappy with the recommendation of the National Police Commission, which had a chairman like Mr. Dharamvira and some eminent people as its members. I was a joint secretary in the National Police Commission. So it has taken all these years for states. Some states have constituted these boards, but they have been filled by people whose own background is not all that good. But having said that, I think things are changing. The media is now bringing all these things. They are highlighting all these shortcomings in our system, and that will force the government to constitute these boards or civil service boards or those security commissions and fill them with people with good reputation, experienced people, people of integrity, so that they can get the right advice. There's recent transfers of Durga Shakti Nagpal.
Ashok Khemka is one of them.
Today
I was reading one of the papers in senior IAS officer in his 35 years of service was transferred 25 times. So we have these kind of examples in front of us.
The transfer is okay as long as it's not arbitrary. As I said, initial years of my service, 10-15 years, there was virtually no interference at all. And we did our full tenure. But today, on telephones, you are being transferred. And for reasons which have anything to do with your professional performance. And that needs to change.
The unfortunate aspect is that after Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru's era in 1964 onward, before earlier ability was the sole criteria. And now it has become loyalty to political party more important than ability, and which is unfortunately a deterioration of the various institutions. So unless we restore again the ability over the loyalty to any political party, things will not improve, and Supreme Court is precisely trying to achieve that.
Another interesting aspect, Dr. Singh, in this yesterday's judgment was that Supreme Court observed that there are at least 13 states that have accepted the necessity of minimum tenure of civil servants so that they can achieve their professional targets. But still we see these kind of things happening.
And that's why the third element which I said, apart from transparency, that is written records, and then accountability, third part is stability. So what Supreme Court is saying, that you must fix a tenure, let's say 5 years, 4 years, so that a person can do some job there. Now a collector starts some reform, and within 6 months the person is, or if you're chairman or something, so whatever he has started, he is not able to accomplish. Contrast this by, say, I have studied at Oxford, Harvard. In Harvard, the president of Harvard University is till he serves, so that at least there is a direction. And then Supreme Court judges are also appointed for life. So there is a direction, because they have a basic trust in them. In India, we distrust too much. We do not trust our own people. And as a result of that, we do not trust, then we misuse our power. So, but kindly also put things in perspective. In 1870s, America was as much full of corruption as India is today. And it took another 30 years when Teddy Roosevelt came into power to really improve the system. And antitrust laws, as they call it, Sherman Act, that came into power, where the monopolies of these big businessmen were broken. So in India, things are also happening. So it will take time, but we are going in the right direction.
Dr. Singh, another point I would like to point out, it talks about oral directions where you have to, the senior officers are bound to give those orders in writing. But the caveat is that the order says that if this written direction by senior officials can be overruled by political executive. So has the Supreme Court tried not to directly confront with the political class by giving such kind of directions?
No, there are three dimensions of it. One is that in case of emergency, because Rule 3, subsection 3, subclause 3 of Civil Services says that ordinarily the orders will be given in writing. So ordinarily means only in exceptional circumstances. Supposing there is an emergency. Now instead of following all these, as we say in Sanskrit, Apad Kade Maryada Naste, that in difficult time in emergencies you don't follow the routine law. So a discretion has been given that if something is urgent, then you can give the oral order. But make sure that that is supported by the written confirmation, so that we know, in a sense, post facto ratification of the oral order. So in a sense, it has tried to cover the both ways, that in case there is an emergency, you don't have to wait for the written records, but once the thing is done, then you have to confirm it also. Then ultimately people elect representative people to run the government, not the bureaucrats. Bureaucrats are accountable to political executive, not to other bureaucrats. So to that extent, since we have a parliamentary form of government, and it's ultimately the people through their elected representative, so that accountability also kept. So it's a very delicate balance which Supreme Court had tried to strike down. Otherwise, very institution of parliamentary system itself will go away.
Mr. Marwa, do you also believe with this that the written orders by senior officers can be overruled by political executive have been given this power, that this can be overruled by political executive?
If they are overruled in writing, there is nothing wrong in it, because then the political boss takes responsibility for overruling it. It has to record reasons why he or she is overruling it. You can't do it merely on whims and fancies, because the case has been examined. The senior bureaucrats have given their opinion based on merits of the case, and if now the political boss wants to disagree with it, it must give reasons why he or she is disagreeing.
And that order is always judicially reviewable, because if the reasons have been given, then the courts have the power, both high courts as well as Supreme Court has the power to see that whether those reasons which are given are really connected with the decision, or are they totally having no connection at all, totally based on extraneous consideration, as will coin law. So if it is proved that there was no connection whatsoever between the reasons given and the actual decision taken, those can be struck down by the Supreme Court and High Court.
So we can hope for some relief for people like Hemkaz or Durga Shakti Nagpal, which you are talking about.
Let us not expect miracles. It is a step in the right direction. The process has been started, and now the momentum it will build up with pressures of public opinion. We hope the system will change.
Absolutely.
And another point I would like to raise over here is about the Supreme Court has issued directions, but it has said that better alternative would be that if Parliament enacts a law through which it can guide and advise state government that on service matters, on transfers, posting, etc. Ultimately, the ball is on the Parliament's court. But seeing the history of various laws like Women's Reservation Bill and all, we have been seeing that political class not that motivated to bring these kind of real reforms. So what do you have to say about it, Mr.
Well, we don't know what the members of Parliament are motivated today, because you see there are very few sessions are being held. For how long does the Parliament sit? Even some of the vital bills are hardly discussed. The budget is hardly discussed, and where the thousands of crores are sanctioned without discussion. Having said all that, here again I think the elected members will be forced by their constituents to play a role in improving the administrative system, and that's where I think one has to be optimistic.
Dr. Singh, are you hopeful of some kind of political consensus building upon this issue?
See, there's a famous saying, Justice Learned Hand of America said, that I wonder why people place so much trust in the laws, in courts, in constitution. Liberty lies in the heart of people. If it is there, no laws, no constitution are needed. But if it is not there, then no constitution can save it. So ultimate responsibility is, of course, as Marwa Sahab rightly pointed out, of the people and their awareness. But what happens, that supposing no law is made, so that space is there. So judiciary can make laws till Parliament either confirms it or overrules it. That opportunity now has been utilized by the Supreme Court, and with great respect, I would say rightly so. Because now what Supreme Court has done, that look, we can't be a passive spectator when these things are going on. So what we do, we are issuing the directions. If Parliament does not like it, they can overrule it. If they like it, they can make the law. So in other words, if Parliament is totally inactive, at least these rules will continue. So this is a very healthy development.
Everybody is debating whether the political class will let it happen, as we are also debating here. But another crucial aspect of this is whether the bureaucracy is ready for this kind of change. I mean, the certain class of bureaucracy. And will the bureaucracy be able to put its foot down on this issue?
Well, overwhelming number of bureaucrats would like the system to function efficiently and fairly. There is a sprinkling of officers who have got their own vested interest, and they are thriving in this system of today. But that number is very small. The very fact that today our country, if you compare with our neighborhood, is still a heaven of peace and tranquility as compared to what's happening in our neighborhood. So, it is because of bureaucracy. It's because of bureaucracy at various levels it is still functioning. And people are happy getting their salary and living within that. And that is what we require. And this corruption which has seeped into the system has affected bureaucracy. It has affected police, and that needs to change.
Basically giving hope to the people whenever it comes to matter of public interest. Another important our constitutional body is Election Commission. That has major changes have been brought in the entire election process. We used to hear about rigging of elections and all. But now, important point is the nexus between politicians, bureaucracy and police. So, we have these two major reforms still pending. I mean, the police, unless there is a reforms in police and bureaucracy, we can't hope there will be a political reformation in the country. So, Dr. Singh, what do you have to say about it?
Well, the very fact that the process has started, because Supreme Court in so many cases, even in case of corrupt politician, Supreme Court has come out with a decision that if you are convicted, even your appeal is pending, no, you are disqualified. And the first result is 2 leaders who have been disqualified because of that. Then media's awareness 24/7. Earlier it wasn't there. So a lot of factors. Then new generation through internet, media, social media. So all these things are there. So now things are moving in the right direction, as Marwa Sahab rightly said. But in one word, I would say I totally share his optimism that what is right with India is much more than what is wrong with India. There are so many things that needs to be improved. But on the whole, I'll bet on India, because what is right with India is definitely much, much more than what is wrong with India. And what is wrong with India, even we are trying to gradually remove that. So India has a bright future.
Mr. Marwa, your views on this, the nexus between politicians, police and the bureaucracy?
No, the nexus is there. It is for everyone to see. Public awareness, the media awareness, and the judiciary awareness. You know, all these institutions were there before, but that awareness wasn't there. And today it's very difficult to do something wrong and expect that nobody will be able to get to know of it. Mobile phone, it has changed everything. Now our rural areas are connected. You know, what's happening in Delhi is known throughout the country. That wasn't the case before. Television again has changed that. Even the smallest villages you have television reach. The judgments which are coming today perhaps would not have been coming if that awareness and public pressure wasn't there.
Mr. Marwa, since you are one of the petitioners in this case, in the case of police reforms, we see former police officials, senior top cops coming and filing these PIAs. And here again we see retired top former bureaucrats coming out. As many as 77 in this case that was decided yesterday. Why do bureaucrats, don't raise their voice when they are inside the system, and why they choose to move a PIL? Because being inside the system, we can bring in real changes.
Well, quite a few of them do raise their voice, but then they are transferred. They are transferred to unimportant positions where they have no voice at all. But to say that every bureaucrat who is functioning today is not conscientious and doesn't want to raise his voice, that's not true.
Do you think that, Mr. Marwa, that this will give them real inner strength to raise their voice again now? Because, more loudly now, they will come out more in open.
Well, success always gets more supporters. And I think the Supreme Court has given them a lot to celebrate. And hopefully many more retired and serving bureaucrats will start, and police officers will start speaking up and building up this pressure on our political bosses to change the system, to reform the system.
Dr. Singh, what do you have to say about that?
Well, Supreme Court is a protector, defender of the Constitution. And since the Constitution is supreme among all the wings of the government, so when there are problems now, it is not that judiciary was supposed to be so active as it is today. But if the other wings of the government are not doing their duty, then Supreme Court is duty bound to see to it that Constitution is implemented both in letter and spirit, and fundamental values of the society are protected and clarified. That's precisely what Supreme Court is doing. And Supreme Court on the whole, in last 30 years, have done a great job.
And it's the only institution which enjoys credibility, because the other institutions are losing their credibility. And we hope that credibility will be restored to the other institutions also. There was a time when people used to ask for a CBI inquiry over a judicial inquiry.
Supreme Court also highlighted the issue of good governance. I mean, the political interference and the frequent transfer, all these things are going on along. But the important point was about good governance. It says that frequent transfers, it says that affects the quality of life. In fact, it quotes Article 21 of the Constitution about right to life and liberty, and it says, it talks about the frequent transfer affecting the good governance and in turn affecting the quality of life and violates the guarantee of fair governance.
As Mr. Marwa very rightly pointed out, the transfer is the exigency of your job. Because, according to the situation, you have to give some flexibility to the political executive. But it was not a punishment in the beginning. But as Mr. Marwa rightly pointed out, now transfer means a punitive measure, which it was never intended to be. It was much more to give some flexibility to the political executive so that according to the situation, if some changes are to be made, they are made in the best interest of the public. Public interest was the guide principle, not the private interest. Now transfer is used as an instrument to intimidate bureaucrats and to make them fall in line, which is the practice which is deplorable, not the transfer itself. But there the Supreme Court has said that better you give a fixed tenure and hold the person accountable so that the person knows that how long he will be there, he can plan it, he can implement it, and since the orders will be in writing, he can be held accountable. So this is much, much better.
You are penalizing the officer, but what's actually happening is that it's affecting good governance, affecting the life of common man. So do you think that, Mr. Marwa, that the pace of development will grow? I mean, it will help in addressing people's real problems?
Oh, obviously, because ultimately the efficiency of administration will determine the development, pace of development and the quality of development. Today you see the wastage in transmission. Why should it take place? Now all these can stop if we have an efficient system. It's not all that difficult to change and ensure, because as again Dr. Suraj Singh has said, if there is accountability, and that's the key, make people, the political executive accountable, make the administrator accountable, then you will get everything.
Dr. Singh, what do you have to say about it? Will it give relief to common people also in a way?
The fundamental question before government or before any institution is this, that there are certain stated purpose for which an institution is created. But gradually, the processes which we develop to achieve this objective, sometimes there is a divergence between your stated purpose and what actually you do. For example, a civil servant is a public servant. The title itself says public servant, means service of the public. But sometimes he becomes political servant, servant of a politician. Sometimes he becomes private servant, his own servant. And this is distortion. And this is corruption at a most fundamental level. What is corruption is that when you do not utilize your resources, services, abilities for the purpose for which it was given, but for some other purpose and for some extraneous consideration, that's corruption. So now Supreme Court over and again is saying that the gap between your stated purpose of serving the public and public interest and what you are doing, that gap is to be bridged. And that's precisely what is happening, that you should be doing what you are supposed to do, and if there are any obstacle by political interference or anybody else, those should be removed. And that is what the object of this judgment is.
Thank you, Dr. Singh. Thank you, Mr. Marwa.
You were listening to a discussion on Supreme Court's direction on civil service reforms. The participants were Ved Marwa, former Delhi Police Commissioner, Dr. Suraj Singh, Advocate Supreme Court, and Sandeep Joshi, the Hindu, who initiated and moderated the discussion. It came to you in the program Current Affairs, produced and presented by the News Services Division of All India Radio. This program is also available on our website newsonair.nic.in. You may email your opinion about this program at airnsdtalks@gmail.com.